spoken about. That is, in that book, Culture and Imperialism, the first point is Said picks up the novel form as the most telltale example of how a cultural form or culture helps imperialism, colonialism, and by and large politics. That is, as I said, this is an extension of the Marxist contention, which has also been a feminist contention in certain ways, that everything is political. Nothing in the world is apolitical. Politics does not mean party politics, this party, that party, etc. Anything which is done with a hidden agenda, so from apparently it appears innocent, is done for universal good or good of others, but then has an agenda, is political. So that's why we say, in theory, it is also said by Marxists and feminists that the personal is the political, that even the personal, that even I love you or you love me, those kinds of things, there are hidden politics. Always this may not be conscious, but it works unconsciously. Because love, in our day-to-day sense, it implies power, means possessive. If I love you, I won't want to share you with any other, you are mine, that kind of thing. So apparently love, but politics. Similarly, culture and imperialism. So Robinson Crusoe is apparently an adventure story. Just as, there can be another interesting relation of this with, it can be related to Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is apparently an adventure story, but basically it is not. This is a coded message of love of nature, of sacrifice, Christ figure, etc., etc. Similarly, apparently Robinson Crusoe, when a child reads it, it is an adventure story, but with the insight of post-colonial theory, Edward Said's inputs and all, now we can clearly see that this is a novel about setting up an empire. So what does a novel do, this kind of novel? Large public read it in England, in America, so automatically they will have a pro-imperialistic feeling. The quote-unquote savage is there. Today it is even politically incorrect to use the term savage. So Friday, Robinson Crusoe, names him. That is, the natives do not have name, they do not have culture, they do not have education, but the colonizers give them everything. Right? So this is the kind of worldview that the novel is generating. On a similar note, after a couple of years, we have this Mansfield Park, 1814, by Jane Austen. There also, if in Robinson Crusoe it is, the colonization is present directly, Mansfield Park supports colonization by implication. Mansfield Park is a big house in England, and the owner of the house is Sir Thomas Bertram. So many things takes place in his house, mostly about love and affair. Jane Austen has been famous or infamous for being a love story writer by common consent. However, if you read deeply, she is a very intelligent and very subtle writer. You can uncover a lot of things from under the structure of marriage and matchmaking. So that is what Said has done, Raymond Williams has done. But this entire wealth of Sir Thomas Bertram comes from, where does it come from? Comes from his sugar plantations in Antigua, in the Caribbean islands, or metaphorically from anywhere in the colonies. But then the colony is not at all represented in the novel. So you see the injustice, the very place whose economy, the profit from which is sustaining the world of the novel, is not given any representation. So very similar to misrepresentation of women, the Dalits, etc. So misrepresentation or underrepresentation of the colonies, right? So this is how culture, makes imperialism possible, holds it. It doesn't, cause imperialism, but holds it in place. It doesn't work against it. Again, after a few years, he chooses another text, a text published after a few years, 1861, that is Great Expectations. Similar pattern. Apparently, the novel is about Philip Pirrip or Pipes becoming a gentleman. After becoming a gentleman, somehow he comes to know that all the money that he has been getting for this process is, without his knowledge, given by, or today as we use the term sponsored by a criminal called Abel Magwitch, whom he had helped when he was a child, partially unknowingly, helped him to escape. You read the story, I think all of you know this, you must read all these core novels for the pleasure of reading, whether it is there in the course or not. There are excellent movies also. So, and he was in Australia. Australia, you remember, was a penal colony. People who were punished with life imprisonment, etc., or banishment rather, they were sent to Australia. It recurs even in David Copperfield, other Dickens novels. So, but then Australia is not present in Great Expectations, which is all about England and English society. So, but then English society is actually held in place very similar to Mansfield Park. All its paraphernalia, wealth, riches, etc., mainly from the income of the colonies, or in this case, is brought up by the money which has been made by a criminal during his stay in the colony, which is Australia. But Australia is not represented in the novel. That is novelistic injustice, in a way, if we can coin a term like that. Just as we have term like poetic justice, borrowing from it, this is a kind of poetic injustice. So I think this is very clear, what Said has tried to show here. In Culture and Imperialism, he has established conclusively. Now you read a little more, and I think this will be clear. With this, we conclude our lecture of Culture and Imperialism. However, the same novel form has been, or had been adopted in India, and has been used as an anti-imperial form by the novels of Bankim Chandra. For example, our Bande Mataram song comes from Bankim's novel Anandamath. I have a lecture related to this already uploaded in the YouTube, which is on post-colonialism, imagination of Indian poet. I don't remember the exact title right now. I'll share with you. Okay. I think all the best. We will reappear with some other talk. Thank you very much.